Could somebody say something?
Go, guys.
Is it me?
No,
That's you.
it's your episode. No, not you. Everybody point to their...
You in the corner.
REM?
Okay, whoever's starting the episode clearly has to have a mic in their hand. Hello and welcome to the Flanderization Files. Oh, did I cut you off? You wanted to do something, didn't you?
I
Go
almost
ahead.
had the mic in... No, I just wanted to get the mic in my hand, but you were there.
And welcome back to the Flanderization Files, where we take a dive into files. There's some Flanderization episodes of TV. You should be there.
You had an extra week to get this ready.
But to be fair, he had a stroke last week.
Okay.
No, I was there with him last week. He didn't have a stroke. I almost had a stroke last week.
You struggled. Wow.
Who wouldn't? And honestly, who wouldn't struggle watching this show?
Okay, well, now that I thought I picked a lovely TV show that of all ages could enjoy. Families. This brought families together. This fed families for 9 years.
I don't know if it's like a school lunch.
I have neither family nor friends who would vouch for this show. Ben, can you please tell the class what your dad said about this show? Because it's also reminiscent of how pretty much everybody in my family feels about King of Queens, which is the show we're talking about today.
After my dad watched 2 to 2.5 hours of news from 6 to 8:30, we got to watch sitcoms all together. And so we would always watch, like, they had a row of shows, but they would change in and out. But I distinctly remember the time that it was Everybody Loves Raymond and then followed by The King of Queens. Every night we'd finished Everybody Loves Raymond, and my dad would stand up as the theme song or the opening theme to King of Queens played, and he would just go, well, that's my cue, and then go to bed. My opinions on this show from a young age were formed, and they haven't changed.
Fair. And you never decided to pick it up again?
Well, until I had to watch 5 episodes over the last couple of weeks, no.
Okay. What about you, Dakota? Sally?
So I did watch The King of Queens probably when I was like 16 to 18 years old. My parents would watch it, and they actually really liked it. They got into it, and there were some episodes I would catch from time to time, but I was just really waiting for them to watch House because, that's House. But before then was The King of Queens. That was their pre-show, I guess, to House. And I guess being that age, almost graduating high school, I was like, it's pretty funny. But after a while, when we're learning a lot about this Flanderization stuff, and I guess just interpretation of sitcoms, media in general, there's definitely a lot of problematic things that happen in this series that I'm so excited to dive into, especially with the 25 episodes we had to watch.
Bold words from Sally, I'll say that. The biggest thing I want to say before we jump in is I was never into this show. Like I said, I got the full King of Queens experience. I went out to visit Tyler. I got to watch these with him on his couch. It was very fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the experience. I did not enjoy the episodes, but I think the important
he did
thing,
not. No.
I think the one important thing to keep in mind as we talk about stuff that's problematic or hasn't aged well is I think like comedy it's not necessarily supposed to age well. This is a show from the early 2000s. I think the much larger conversation we need to have is it good? Like, just ever, was it good? And I'm here to say probably not. That's not
I
necessarily what this show's about, but we can't just skate by that one.
But I mean, I'm happy you kind of brought those things into play because we will be discussing about that further on. Don't you worry, good man. But yes,
yeah,
You.
to me, this show feels like sitting in traffic on the Queensboro Bridge.
We're stuck in the theme song.
Dakota, you had something to say?
But wait. Who are we talking about in the King of Queens?
I'm happy you asked. So, welcome to the Flanderization Files, where we sit down and we watch a couple episodes and we discover the background history of any character of what choosing episodes we want of the series, and we decide if they're Flanderized or not. So, sit back and join us on a long drive as we take this package across the Queensboro Bridge. Our eyes are going to get weary and our backs are going to get tight as we discover these 5 episodes that I have here for you today. Boom! The steps to Carrie's downfall.
It's a black screen.
I was really hoping. It would
Is it really? Okay.
Okay.
The steps to Carrie's downfall. Ah! Whoa! We are discovering, or we are breaking down Carrie Heffernan in The King of Queens today. And we have our 5 episodes as well. So, and then just going into this, I don't know if you see this or not. This is the actual house of the show. The house was actually not in Queens whatsoever. It is in New York, but it just wasn't in Queens. So, the little now you know everything about the show. It was all lies. It was all bad to begin with.
He was really the king of Manhattan.
Yeah, that was already taken though. I chose 5 episodes to. I was just thinking, for this episode, I don't know what episode this is now, but we've been doing pretty well in these, and I figured for this episode, I never even discussed why I chose King of Queens. So I grew up with King of Queens. It was actually one of my mother's favorite shows growing up. So like I watched this with her all the time, and as a kid, I thought it was funny. I would watch it on TBS at my grandma's house a lot because like we had cable, right? So
Oh yeah, you had cable.
Sally, can you put a brag alert in post?
I didn't. Anyway, so we had cable, and anyway, so it was always on passing and everything. As a kid, I would watch it with my grandma at her house. I thought it was funny. I actually had yearly meetings with the Schwansman. While like so Schwansman showed up at Tuesday nights or Wednesdays whenever the show would air as well too. And so I remember perfectly when this show came on, the Schwan's truck would come right outside my store or right outside my house. And I mention this now because rest in peace, Schwans. You mean so well to us.
Also, Tyler grew up in a 7-Eleven.
I don't want this frozen ice cream. I want that frozen ice cream.
change the tuna to 3. Please.
Dude, the little ice cream trees though, that was the best. Anyway,
I couldn't tell you what Schwann's ice cream tastes like 20 years later, but I still remember the taste of that wooden spoon. Tell you what.
Yeah, the one that gave you splinters too, so you knew it was authentic and real.
Mm-hmm. Which is always what I worry about with wooden spoons.
So,
It's wood or concrete?
I've heard of concrete mixers, but this is ridiculous.
Okay, we're gonna get this on. Cut all this, Dakota. This is
about King of Queens. We're not allowed to be funny.
Anyway, so this is about King of Queens and Carrie Heffernan and the steps to Carrie's downfall. So basically, what I thought in this was it was very, very hard picking the 5 episodes we were going to be discussing today, but I really feel like I picked something. I wanted to show the arc of who we got to begin with, to where we were going, to then what we ended up with. And unfortunately, I believe a lot of this has to do with the steps of Carrie's demise. And if we get into that, if we can see, I have like right here is my stock characters for my first one. And I also have for my second step is limited gags. My third step is no morals. And then my last step, if I'm correct, is the butt.
I literally thought that was a watermark of the photo you grabbed from Google.
Because those are the 4 things I would say to describe the entire show.
So just to give we're gonna go right down through all the episodes, and not really, but I'm just gonna list off what episodes we watched right now. So we watched Supermarket Story, season 1, episode 10. We then saw Motorcycle, or the was it? And remember
Queasy Rider.
Queasy Rider. Thank you. Season 2, episode 1. Then we saw Sight Gag, season 4, episode 2. Lush Life, season 4, episode 20. Close Encounters, season 5, episode 21. And then we also watched Knee Jerk, season 8, episode 16.
Wow. Yep. Until you mentioned that one, I completely forgot about it because it was such.
Yeah, we actually
it was
watched
such
6
a
episodes.
sitcom stock plot that I completely forgot about it.
So when me and Will were watching this, actually, like Will had to take a 20-minute break for every 2 20-minute episodes we were watching. Like,
Which makes
is
sense.
honestly impressive.
And think about it. We watched these all without commercials. So, I mean, 22-minute run, 8 minutes of commercials, about 16 minutes between the 2 episodes taking off. I think that's generous.
Not as long as you have the Peacock with ads plan, which I did, and commercials were like 3 minutes long in between every like 5 minutes or so.
Oh, that must have been nice. You could like reconsider all of this.
To start off with our series and everything, let's go to the Supermarket Story season 1, episode 10. So basically, this episode is it's a really weird episode. Some people like it, some people don't. When it comes to the fans and the community of King of Queens, I will admit I took a look into the Reddit page.
I'm surprised they know how to read, let alone write. So
I'm surprised
they're.
Oh my!
Wow. But he was right. There was a lot of grammatical errors actually. So, So Supermarket Story, I picked this episode because I thought this was a really good just entry to who Carrie is in the if you ever got to see the pilot, and I know Will didn't, but it starts off the episode of her being just a series of being like a good wife. You know what I mean? Like she had some aspirations to get a better job. She wanted to explore more. So this episode, really, I picked it because we kind of get a little bit of that into that. So the supermarket episode is basically they go to the supermarket for Thanksgiving to get Thanksgiving dinners. However, Carrie doesn't cook, and she's very clear that she's a wife that does not cook. She does frozen dinners, and that's it. Her father, Arthur, who... what a wonderful character, played by the lovely Mr. Stiller. What's his name?
Ben.
No, the other ice cream guy.
So her father in the show, Arthur, is upset.
Played by Jerry Stiller. We all know it's Jerry Stiller, right?
Oh.
Well, clear that it's Jerry Stiller.
We can't ask Tyler for a name on this podcast without an unrelated monologue.
So Carrie and Doug anyway, so Carrie, Doug, and Arthur go over to the supermarket for Thanksgiving to get Thanksgiving dinners. Carrie is very clear that she doesn't cook or anything of the sorts, and she's getting frozen dinners. So then her father, Arthur, throws a riot and a fit in the store like a child, demanding that they make the actual real dinner just like her mom used to do before she died, and guilt trips her into essentially building on this whole dinner. And it's at the last second, too, because it's like the day of or the day before Thanksgiving, and now Carrie decides to put on this big, extravagant Thanksgiving. You never actually see the dinner. It's just all leading up to buying the stuff for the dinner herself. But she doesn't know how to cook, and that's the biggest joke of the, oh, she don't know how to cook. So up to Carrie, she decides, even though she doesn't want to do this Thanksgiving dinner, she then stalks and follows a woman throughout the whole supermarket, trying to track down what she's buying as well, buying the same things, so she can recreate the recipes at home because she doesn't have the recipes from the woman that she tried stealing from the supermarket, that she stole the parking spot from the very beginning too. So like, there's a little bit of everything in this episode. But it's nothing like crazy in the beginning, but you do see a little bit of like the shticks and patterns they kind of threw with her, and her character of like the no cooking, no cleaning, but a hardworking woman. It like works for the 1990s, like actually very progressive, for the time period too. But supermarket story, how do we all feel about that? And then let's just make this an open discussion for everyone.
Yeah, I told you I was going to save my thoughts on a lot of it until we actually got to sit down and talk. I did not know it was a season 1 episode when you threw it on. And so the thing I did say was I was trying to clock exactly when I realized this was not going to be leaving the supermarket, because I did not see the title of the episode either. But I could have guessed it was season 1 for a couple reasons. One was when Arthur started throwing the fit to Carrie and like hardcore guilt tripping her about making the traditional home cooked Thanksgiving meal. It kind of set off the signal to me that he had just moved in with her recently, kind of established a dynamic. You're right, I didn't see the pilot, so the best guess I've got is like between the structure of the series and the way all of these characters are, like it seems like Frasier, but everybody's Martin. Like that's just the vibe I've been getting from it. Is like that's the whole setup for me. But the other thing that kind of clocked me that it was like a season 1 episode was just the camera was moving in a really interesting way. I thought it wasn't just stock shots of the same setups, and obviously with the different set of the supermarket that was going to come into play, but I could see a much flatter looking version of this. Even something like Superstore that looks nice, I could still see this being akin to that. But no, the camera's moving with the characters. It's doing a nice job of juxtaposing the Doug and Carrie plots. For anything, this is the closest of any of the sitcom episodes that I would like to see as like a little stage play, just different vignettes going on. Arthur also carried it. I'm going to feel that way about all of these episodes. This was the closest I felt to being happy. What did you guys think?
I really appreciated the aesthetic of not the live studio audience, but yeah, rolling along with the camera, and it was doing interesting things. And you could tell it was season 1. I think just because of the '90s aesthetic, it looks really warm, and the grain is kind of there on the screen. I totally agree. I think this was a great like takeoff point for Carrie, and all of the points that you're going to make on her Flanderization. It kind of really set off the trigger right away as soon as she's like trying to find a parking spot at the beginning and just yelling and screaming and being really very loud and boisterous. So yeah, I really think that this was a good starting point.
Mm-hmm. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, and so I mean, she's screaming, she's yelly, she's got a tight temper, but at least you see the love that she actually has for her family, the things that she's doing for her father as well too, while her idiot husband's running around trying to run away from a guy who he doesn't remember the name of from 20 years ago in the past. Like there's just like these little things that she's annoyed, but like she's still like doing things for other people, at least, you know what I mean? And so I thought that would be a really good first episode, just to kind of show that we do have a little bit of these characteristics. And when we do go back into the steps of Carrie's downfall, which I hope you enjoyed, this bad boy right here, boom. So the steps of Carrie's downfall, we start with stock characters actually, and I'm happy you guys mentioned that too, because it really does feel like they are all one dimensional, and so that is what I've noticed is her character is just the not your average housewife. That is what they were built for the 1990s, or in the comedy, I guess. But then
The last thing I'd say is just that between Arthur and Doug, but especially Arthur in this episode, I think it does lay an interesting path for Carrie and what we're going to see moving forward. But I will have more to say on that as we get further down the line.
it sucks because this show could have been great. I mean, it was a big launch for them. CBS, they wanted to move into something else. It's true that Everybody Loves Raymond was at its peak right there. They're trying to find something to kind of push off of it. If you don't know and weren't aware, they actually did use this character in a Raymond episode of Everybody Loves Raymond, and that's how they slowly started bringing this idea of, well, what if a delivery driver had his own story as well? And then that's when you got into the King of Queens. And then in the first season and the second season, and a couple of seasons later too, Raymond actually shows up a bunch in this. So that's really the initial launch of this whole, it was piggybacked off of the success of Everybody Loves Raymond, just so you know as well. So I used a Raymond episode actually as an extra too, and I used it, and I don't know if Dakota saw this. Dire Straits, I think it was.
I don't know if we want to touch base on that right now, but I did have a thought with that.
Go ahead.
Because everything you said about Carrie, the potential of her character growth of being the not so average housewife, caring for Arthur and Doug, that really kind of showed out a little bit more in that episode too. Like the ending scene with her and Doug in the attic when he's stuck up there.
And that's why I really wanted that episode, at least in the extras, because Doug does some stupid stuff. They get in a fight, they start yelling, but they make up about it, and like she actually like tries to get him out of the hole he's stuck into, and it's actually a really nice, sweet moment. So it does show Carrie has these actually like really nice, thoughtful moments where she's still loving and caring, even though she has an idiotic husband, which is the stock character. You know what I mean? Like this is, you have the nagging wife, you have the idiot husband, and then you have the childish father, and that's really what they weren't supposed. They were, but they weren't supposed to be it. But then they get molded into exactly that by the end of these seasons. And going into that, we'll get into episode Queasy Rider, season 2, episode 1.
Refrigerator crash.
Okay, perfect. So
I bet I could give a 20-second synopsis. I watched this on your couch. I want to say half asleep. Doug wants to get a motorcycle. Episode 1. Like I said, if I knew at the time that was the closest I was going to get to being happy, I would have paced this a little differently. We would have made like a week out of it. I would have taken time off work. It would have been a whole thing. So, okay, quick synopsis. Doug and Carrie, what I remember, he wants to get a motorcycle. She doesn't want him to. He does without telling her because he doesn't need permission, blah, blah, blah. He hates it. And then he gets rid of it under the guise of, well, you didn't like it, so I got rid of it for you. Ha ha, I'm a good husband. And then she feels bad about being the deciding factor, so she gets it back for him. And then it turns out it's because he hated it. We knew as the audience that he hated it and watched him lie to her. And then it was everybody gets their comeuppance. Nobody's happy. That about do it?
Yeah. No, that was perfect, actually.
I know this is not related to Carrie at all, but I love the side plot of Arthur trying to get a job, and he applies to
that one. Okay.
Yeah.
Commercial shop, and he has to get a ride on a motorcycle every day, so he kind of wants to get the motorcycle so he can take him to work.
Yeah.
I basically said this was like the battle of who is wearing the pants now, and so much arguing and going back and forth. And
I was just surprised we were so early in the series and so out of plots already.
Yep. Yeah. And that's I think what I wanted a fifth step to be, but I just forgot to put it in there. But it was just like limited ideas. It seems like every episode that ever came out of this series was just all like just copy, rinse, repeat all the ideas that ever came before. Nothing but bottle episodes, or will they? I don't even know how to explain it. There
Yeah.
was just like there was no original idea or content for it.
It was always focused on Carrie and Doug
Yep.
and their relationship, which I mean, people could get something out of that, but in a lot of these episodes, it is just strictly Carrie and Doug plots of them
Yep.
fighting all of the time, but it just never ends in some
And
sort
it
of
never
morality.
progresses.
Yeah,
Like there's never
progresses.
like a progressive story. Like they do some writing in here, and it's very interesting what they do. And this is why, and Ben, when he was talking about this with Joey, it really made it really interesting. And I've been thinking about this a lot different. And then when he was talking about this with Ron Swanson too, but just like how they could have gone in a different direction instead of the direction that they went with. You know what I mean? And so already you had a wife that didn't cook or clean, was a business career motivated woman, but still loving and kind and taking care of the family at the same time. You know, that was something not really seen a lot at the time. And it was, again, it was pushing this new idea and moving forward. However, what we get is the stock characters, where it feels like you get Doug and Carrie and Arthur put into a situation, and it's nothing against, like, it's nothing about the character whatsoever, but it's all reactive. That's all what this series is all about. It's just reactiveness.
That's a great word. And I think with a show like this, you're right. It's hard to explain because will they, won't they isn't the correct term because they're already together. We see the stage of their relationship. And other than at the end when there's the brief fallout between them, if we don't have strong plots, then it's got to hinge on their reactions to one another. And I think the biggest thing holding the show back, other than the stock writing, is just the fact that it's hard to root for, much less care about their fighting when it's not a Sam and Diane situation. And I don't think Leah Remini and Kevin James have like good chemistry. Like it's not entertaining to watch. I don't feel fun. You know, there's nothing cathartic about it because I know that these crazy kids are going to be okay or that this is fueling anything bigger. I know they're together. I just don't give a shit because it seems like they genuinely don't care about each other. Whether that's the characters or the actors, I don't know. The writing's certainly not there, but the lack of chemistry between the two actors certainly isn't carrying it across the finish line. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think for you too, Will, it's kind of hard for you with your perspective because you've only seen the 5 episodes we gave you, and you weren't able to see the other pieces and those extras too.
Right, and the other problem I'm having with that is that for me, it just seems like 5 too many.
Fair. No, that's a very fair assessment to say. That's very true. It's very true. And maybe Dakota can back me up a little bit because he did see a couple of episodes, and I don't know if you saw any at the beginning or not. But at least there were some moments where there was like some kind of chemistry, or there was something in the first 2 seasons. I will admit that.
I do think in the career of Kevin James, like this is probably maybe the best he's ever been, honestly.
Oh, hang on. Let me clear this low bar really quick.
And you know, I think there is some sort of like affection between the actors because I saw an interview with Leah Remini and she was like, I can't have any better chemistry because Kevin James was just so great to work with, and I do find that genuine. But sometimes it's just it doesn't affect the show and the plot progression of it. It's just you could tell they're having fun.
Yeah, well, like chemistry doesn't necessarily mean off-screen chemistry, right? It's like they could be best of friends off-screen, but like their on-screen chemistry is just
doesn't work together.
Match each other.
And because his was goofy, and hers was rah, you know what I mean?
Did you write for the series?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. That was some of my best work, actually.
And honestly, rather than watch these 5 episodes, if you had just done that, I would have gotten it.
So the reason I chose this episode number, or season 2, episode 1, Queasy Rider, is this is when we kind of get into limited gags, right? So I think there was certain things that certain factors that they did to themselves, I feel like shot themselves in the foot. First of all, they didn't have any good secondary characters. In the very beginning, you had Tony, the Italian guy, boring stock character, done, overrated. And then you had Deacon, the token black character.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I like Deacon, don't get me wrong, but they kind of do him dirty in his whole character as well too.
Yeah, I wish we had a fifth white guy to talk about that.
I agree.
Anyway, I feel like they did him dirty as well though too, because he was in this loving relationship with kids and a wife, and then all of a sudden, oh, there's one season where he just is having an affair. And it's like they have these moments where like, oh, there's an affair, or they want kids but they can't. And it seems like every comedy series, like when they run out of ideas, it's always just like, should we have kids? Oh, we can't. Well, let's do this kind of process that lasts the whole season, and then we never pick it up again for another 5 seasons, and then all of a sudden, kids. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
seems like that's a pattern in these early comedies. And when you're
1,000%.
running out of ideas, that's when you know you kind of jump the shark when you bring kids into it.
And all the stock and all the side characters anyway are just supporting Doug or Carrie.
Yeah,
They're
they
all-
don't have any actual like. You don't even care to watch them either. They're not
No.
fun. They're not
Because
interesting. They just kind of.
His friends just peer pressure him to buy the motorcycle because it's like you're a man and you should buy a motorcycle and don't listen to what your wife says. And I'm like, you guys aren't fucking characters at all. Like you're just kind of plain Janes.
Well, and
Bronies, yeah.
so, and at least if they had like their own thoughts and their own like they just push the narrative. That's all that they ever do. They don't actually like change the narrative. Like at least when we talk about How I Met Your Mother, you have 5 distinguished different characters with all different viewpoints that are pushing this narrative along, but instead you just have 5 stock characters that are all saying the same thing.
Yeah, and they never carried their own plots, I imagine. I do remember years ago, the last time I watched King of Queens was like 2018. It was with you. And there was, I couldn't tell you what exactly it was. I feel like it involved like transit, like the MTA, but there was a Spence and Arthur subplot. And that was the first and maybe only time watching the show where like watching those 2 secondary characters, I was like, oh, okay. They're like, there's a second set of tent poles here. You know what I mean? Like it's not just linear.
Yep. And they kind of do the same thing with Danny and with Spence as well too. But Danny's an unlikable character throughout the whole series, and that was just to replace the Italian character Tony that they lost in season 3. So it really Danny just kind of felt like a throwaway character of a failed sandwich owner, or failed sandwich business owner. That's all he was.
Fail at owning.
I got one sandwich.
Hey, oh!
But yeah, I think what really happened with that was because no character had any actual depth. There wasn't really there was no gags. You know, at least with like Barney, you had like the whole the plan book and all that kind of stuff, and the bro code, and there was all these little gags and all things that you could keep popping back up. His magic tricks, things like that. There was something to keep the story going along with it. You know what I mean? Same thing with like Friends, all the little gags that they did and the different storylines that they had as well too, and reoccurring jokes. There is none of that here. They don't have any gags. Their gags are, oh, we have the wife yelling at the husband. Isn't this kind of funny? Oh, he fell over himself because he's too fat and can't see his feet. You know, like it wasn't. That's all that these jokes.
I like that. That's the implied sitcom logic. Whenever a fat guy falls down, like we as the audience are supposed to remember. Oh yeah, he can't see his feet.
But I think with the limited characters and the limited gags, there wasn't much to play with. So that's when they start finding in season 2 and season 3. Oh, this is where it's the best. This is when we start having the fighting. So the show itself goes from a loving couple that is trying to be a couple in a marriage and just live through life, and now find themselves having to take care of her father. Again, relatable things. but then it kind of turns into just a free for all for fighting. Then basically the storyline is no longer of these couple watching them kind of grow together through these exchanges of what's going on, but instead it's just a battle of the sexes in marriage, and that's really what this show kind of dwindles down to is marriage is awful and no one's ever happy in an actual marriage. And
Yeah, I don't think anybody even learns
no,
that. I think they just
no.
assume that this is the average marriage, and people in the 90s who were
And as a
married.
kid, I actually grew up watching this going, oh, well, and my mom would laugh at it. And she goes, well, yeah, that's marriage right there. That was me and your father. So,
Mhm.
like, as a kid, growing up as a single kid, I was like, oh, okay, well, this is what is expected when you get married is you're just going to fight, but that's love. You know what I mean? And now that I watch this, I go, yo, this just kind of sucks. Like, I don't even want to watch this at all. I know the first couple episodes, or like, I know everything was rough for you guys. But the last seasons just get even worse.
Yeah.
And it runs into the no morals thing as well. We'll get that to a little bit.
I think there is a constant pattern at the very end of each episode that we see.
Yep.
Is
Yep.
Carrie gets the worst of it compared to Doug and Arthur, like especially in this episode where she's like, you're gonna ride a motorcycle, well, I'm gonna take up smoking again, which is so fucking uneven, and
Yeah.
it's not correct. And then as soon as Doug gives up the motorcycle and they kind of make up, I guess, she's still smoking in the shower. Like they're just tossing her to much further digression.
And so this is when you start to see actually a little bit of the no morals as well. Because then anything that was morals for this character is instantly thrown out the frickin' window. And I don't know if that was season 3. I'm having a feeling it was during season 3. Because again, this was during a time when they thought, hey, let's try to add something relatable and real and serious into a comedy show. Like, I don't know, a worker strike that lasts 4, 5, 6, like half the season, and it's just kind of like downer. But it doesn't really progress anything. It doesn't make Doug go, I want to go back to college and I want to get a different an education. None of that. There is no growth here. It's just, oh, well, I don't have a job right now, so well, let's go see what Deacon's up to. So season 4, we did a quick little jump, and that's when I really think.
Quick.
Oh, episode 2, season 4, sight gag. So Doug decides he wants to be a great husband and do something nice for his wife, Carrie, and he never does anything good for her. And none of his prizes or presents do a good job for her. So, or at least in his eyes, he's an idiot who can't give his wife a good present. So he decides what I'm going to do is I'm going to give her laser eye surgery because it's something that she's been wanting to get for a while. She was having trouble seeing with her glasses. So he said, I'm going to get her laser eye surgery. What he doesn't tell you is that he gets her surgery from some other recommendation, not the recommendation from her work, which she told her to get from her boss. He got it from a cheap guy instead who would do a coupon which was 50% off the second eye. So if he bought the first eye surgery, he'd get the second eye surgery for 50% off. However, this backfires on him and eventually leaves Carrie blind. So, which by the end of the episode, Carrie then gets her surgery again. They get it done correctly by the correct doctor from her boss that she wanted to begin with. However, she had to go blind to get there. Essentially, as this episode, fellas, what did we think of this?
I thought it was kind of shocking how the New York City DMV has much shorter lines than Michigan does.
Fair.
Show had a limited budget for extras.
I think I was just put off by the title because I was checking the titles by the time we got to this point in the viewing, just because I had nothing better to do. And the name Sight Gag, it's my fault for expecting anything. I just thought there might be jokes in this one.
So the reason I picked this episode and why I thought it was like a good contender to throw in here, this is like when we start to see Carrie turn into the puncher, the fighter. This is when like she actually like at first it used to be playful of you're an idiot, you're a fatty, all that kind of stuff, right? It was verbal abuse.
And all it takes is her
Um,
husband blinding her to save money to change that?
Fair enough, fair enough. But if you look at after the course of this, every episode is her fighting with Doug, but now it starts to get physical. And then she's and not just like like it's a full on thrusting a fist at him kind of thing, punching him, calling him a fatty, fatso, rubbing his titties and everything. It gets really very demeaning after a while.
So it always seems like that these plots start out with Carrie not really wanting to do something, and I think her wearing glasses was kind of like a really weak point to start with, because I think Leah Remini looks really good in glasses, and that would have been a good maturity point for her character. But we're just going to jump off the plot anyways and just develop this more. There's just nothing strong that starts it out.
Well, and then so see how they made it the easy way too, of instead of going, oh, just wear the glasses, it went from, oh, well, Carrie's character has to complain and God, I look fucking awful, ah, 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 and I can't wear these glasses at this party, and then that's when it turns into. So the writing itself, they start to turn her into this nagger, complainer, but these other episodes I picked them because it's not even her sometimes that Flanderizes herself. The show itself Flanderizes her too, because all the characters do all the exploitation and all the Flanderizing for her because they speak for her. It gets to the point in these later seasons she's not even in half these episodes or in half the show to begin with. She's really just shows up, says, Doug, stop doing that, you frickin' fatty. You're going to get us in trouble or something, and then leaves. And then Doug goes and does whatever Doug does, and then we get a big fight at the end, and they make up, and then that's it. But that really, like, when she's not around, all the characters will talk poorly of her, too, of, God, she's so mean. Oh, I just want like there's literally episodes of how Doug is so fearful of his life and being in an abusive relationship, even though he's the idiot that's causing these problems for himself. And it gets to a point where like even Arthur will say, she was the sweetest little girl until she met you, and now she's a monster. And so like every character is now always mentions what a bitch Carrie is. Like that's literally like everyone's motive and saying is, wow, she's a bitch. And that actually we get into that with this next episode, and I thought this was a perfect episode. Lush Life, season 4, episode 21. Did you have anything you had to say, Dakota?
I mean, it would have been interesting to see that kind of like anger inside her of like being the repressed wife come out.
Mm-hmm.
And it does happen where she is just constantly angry all the time, but she's just angry for the wrong reasons, the most random reasons.
Yeah.
I think it would have been interesting to see that character growth, especially with like how the show ends.
Mm-hmm.
But it just seems out of the blue with how it does end overall. Yeah. And yeah, you would expect that like the anger would have been more purposeful and it would have had meaning behind it.
Or like this actually then sets a precedent in the show that then sets like dominoes to fall of later on maybe there is a rocky struggle between them, and that's what the season brings back together. There's stuff you can actually do with this of making a comedy. And I mean, we've seen comedies do it before. Look at the Connors.
Why would I?
Okay.
So I just wanted to add, I think we should wait to have this conversation about Carrie until we have our fifth white guy.
We'll just do it in post. Brock, what do you think?
Oh, I kind of think it's pretty cool.
I think we're ever getting a guy named Brock. It can't
we
be you doing
picked a white guy named Brock. Wow.
Okay, Connor, what do you think?
I thought it was pretty cool.
That's better. That's better.
God,
I don't know. I don't think a Connor could be in our group.
Ooh. We're getting
There was something interesting that Blackish did in like the later seasons of like the couple actually splitting up, and it was actually really kind of dramatic. A lot of people kind of hated it, but I thought it was an interesting turn to see that couple go. But what makes Blackish so interesting is that they talk about a lot of introspective stuff about, you know, being a person of color and such. There's none of that here in Kings and Queens.
I wonder why.
It seems like there's actually something at stake. When something goes wrong, there's something actually at stake in those episodes and those even an episode, a TV show such as The Goldbergs has those actual stakes in there. You know what I mean? Where it affects the character, whether it's big or small. But it seems like in this, whether it happens or not, well, we forget all that this next episode because it's completely back to the same thing. Like, oh, I learned my lesson. We're going to do better from now on. And then it literally picks up right from the beginning. Doug's eating some kind of food and drops it all over himself. Carrie says he's a frickin' moron. There's your cold open. My eyes are getting weary. My back is getting tight.
Yeah, I do think like to that point, like I do think the show is in an interesting, like a weird spot where like it was all the jokes like that, like kind of the like jokes and the fact that most of what they were playing off were like these tropes of the like the family. It feels like it was just too late for it to really work. Like they're using jokes from like the 60s and 70s, but in the 90s. But like shows were coming out after that, like pretty soon after that, like really changed like and like showed a lot more nuance in the family of like I'm thinking like The Middle and like Modern Family that come. I mean, it's pretty late after King of Queens, but like they like kind of changed that the way sitcoms had previously portrayed the family, and so like
yeah.
to that point, it's like they fall into these like super traditional gender roles, but you know sometimes they break out of them, but there's no actual growth where like they're learning and becoming better people and like treating each other kinder and like those tropes are falling away. It's like they just continue nailing at them until it's just like this is so boring.
So much so that they actually embrace those 60s sitcoms, because there's one of those episodes where they just do a honeymooners parody of like the the most abusive husband and wife in probably sitcom history, and they embrace it for what it is, and they embrace that this show is just like that too, and it's kind of nauseating.
It's interesting because I think it started with the Honeymooners, and then there have been so many shows, live action and animated, both before and after King of Queens. But whenever people talk about the stereotypical lazy sitcom trope of like fat guy with a wife out of his league, King of Queens is usually the example that's brought up. Like I feel like this one show has done so much damage to a once venerable genre of television, and now like. And I mean, I can't defend it. I won't defend it, in fact. But it's just insane that like something with so little to say can do so much damage to like a collective.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And I think it falls back to that limited gags. There was so little character depth or anything that they could do or character originality that they just said, fuck it. Let's just start throwing bad jokes out there.
Yeah.
So then when they threw in a new character, a dog walker, it just started being the butt of all the jokes of, oh, you're a dog walker. You know what I mean? And they weren't even like clever jokes. It was just like, oh, and she's a dog walker. Ha 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 ha. Pathetic. It was just weird. Sorry, you had something to say, Dakota?
And it was just kind of a random thing because I think like Grounded for Life came out around the same time, I think, and I think that show actually did it so much better, like having the arguing husband and wife. But then you have all the other interesting side characters of the daughter, the brother. I was like, okay, this is kind of the recipe that Kings of Queens needs to help move that husband and wife relationship along. Is, I don't know, more quirkiness.
However, in this show, there is no other side character or plot story you want to watch besides Arthur.
100%.
Arthur is the only story. You don't even want to watch the main story with Doug or Carrie. Heck, half of them ain't even in each of their own story.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know what I mean? It's going to be just like Carrie shows up to yell in the beginning. Then it's all Doug in the very, like, in the next 2/3. And then that last end is them making up. And then Arthur comes back at the end of it after his big escapade of whatever he did. And then makes one big astounding joke.
But then Arthur gets so exhausting too, I think, because that parking ticket episode, I was just completely checked out of that. It was just such a stupid little side plot that Arthur had.
It just you didn't need to watch it. You
No.
didn't need to watch it.
It was fucking boring.
And see, the other thing that I think sets King of Queens apart from a Grounded for Life is if we watch that interaction. I didn't watch the episode you're talking about, but I bet if we watched that interaction, that Arthur plot in an episode of Grounded for Life, you would hear Arthur come home bitching and telling everybody at the kitchen table his side of the story. And then because they've got a great narrative structure of like his side, their side, and the truth, you would then see what actually went down with all of this bullshit. And you would get a fresher take on it, and you wouldn't be as exhausted by Arthur because you get to see him as the good guy and the bad guy. And as he plays both of those status flips, it makes for something compelling. But just like how the camera stopped moving after the supermarket show, so did any semblance of motivation with these writers.
Mm-hmm. I do think Arthur kind of turned around for one episode. I think it was in the later season. I think Tyler put that in his bonus episodes. But when he is like the theater director, I thought they kind of tied in nicely a little bit for the stage play to basically just be Doug and Carrie arguing. And I'm like, it's not good, but that is something that the show needs, is that all the characters' plots need to tie together and be completed at the end.
And I threw that bonus episode in there just because I thought it was so funny. The fighting is such a theme in the show that they made an episode about making an episode of the fighting of the theme of the show. You know what I mean? Like, that's how much we just didn't have any ideas anymore. Like, we were just beating that horse and that Doug Heffernan as much as we could with the baseball bat by Carrie. So moving on to I believe it's our 5th episode.
I just have one more thing to say about Arthur. I guess I hadn't really thought about this, but like we talked about Friends last week and how there was a Joey spinoff. Is the animated series Arthur technically a spinoff of King of Queens?
I knew Patton Oswalt played Buster. All these years I knew it, and nobody would listen to me. So I asked everybody to have their phones ready. I'm going to ask Sally to put this in post. I'm going to send you guys all a picture. Now, Tyler is already going to know a little bit more about this than you guys, so he will have a little bit of an advantage here. But what I'd like to do today is I went to visit Tyler. I had a great time, as we've talked about. And then while I was there, we took a break between episodes, and I ran to use the restroom. And I already had to pee, and then like 3 minutes later, I was almost peeing my pants, laughing.
Stop!
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this picture over, and I don't want anybody to open it, okay? Nobody open it just yet. I just want to go around the table, just Ben, Sally. First thoughts, I'll give this disclaimer, this descriptor, if you will. I saw food on Tyler's bathroom sink without any other description of what it might be, how it was, anything about it. What do you think I saw on Tyler's sink?
No, I'm not lying here. The first thing that came to my mind was a plate of lasagna.
No wrong answers. Okay. No wrong answers.
Okay.
I don't know why that is, but I'm thinking shower lasagna potentially.
Shower lasagna.
There's layers to this.
But yeah, I don't know why. I imagined it soggy and on the counter. Sorry, Tyler.
And
you're good. I actually like the idea. I may steal that from you.
I love that you used the word soggy. Sally?
I would say not soggy, but maybe a little.
Take that out of it.
How about a half-eaten loaded baked potato from Texas Roadhouse?
So specific. I really like the open air
I
element that's on display
I
here.
love that. Yeah, that, not just any baked potato. Texas Roadhouse.
Texas Roadhouse loaded, half eaten implies split down the middle, really just letting all the fecal matter get in there. It was unfortunately or fortunately neither of those things. There's a whole smorgasbord going on. I will ask Sally to eventually drop it on the screen and post, but I will now have everybody go ahead and check the picture in the group chat.
It's like an I Spy book.
Honestly, not far off. Although I can't quite tell what's in the bin.
Fucking Hoonan
I
House.
forgot about the Jello box. Never even asked about the walkie-talkie. Like, or
Wait,
the
is that shredded cheese in that Ziploc bag?
what's? I don't even want to know what's in the water bottle.
Yes, it's cheese in a bag. in the container is spaghetti.
Bro, come on.
Okay.
Okay, here's a fun fact. He told me the whole story of how he acquired this. I forgot. I thought it was some sort of Chinese takeout. So, Ben, you were closer than I thought.
That is so close.
Do you want to know how I got this? Because it's not even mine. It's not mine.
If you say an owl, I'll freak.
I got home and I ran into like my next door neighbor, and they were like, "Hey, I'm making spaghetti. Would you like some?" And I was like, "Yo, I've been working a 12-hour shift. I'm kind of hungry. Like, I think I normally don't take food from strangers, but I think I'm gonna. Yeah, I'll take this plate of spaghetti." But if you look closely enough in there, it's not even spaghetti. The bitch put chili over penne noodles. Like, she didn't even make like spaghetti sauce or use a canned spaghetti sauce. She's like, I put a can of chili in there. And so she poured a can of Hormel chili over these seedy noodles. And they gave me a bag of little cheese to pour over top of it too. And like when I opened it up, I realized like, oh yeah, that's why we don't accept cooking from 21-year-old women. Like,
It's Skyline style. I hope she's watching to hear that her food went untouched in your bathroom and that you called her a bitch for doing something nice.
It's still sitting there. I still haven't.
I was at your home 6 days ago. That picture is from last Tuesday night. It is Monday night when we are recording this.
I don't know what to do with it, man.
I'm going to send her the flash drive of this episode.
Tyler also... also told me this whole ass story about how he got it and then why he didn't eat it and why it sucked. And then
he was drugging it. I mean, that's how you...
Fine. No, I'm putting all that aside because he also talked about, he walked through the apartment with it and showed me how it got to his bathroom. And so I timed it. I went from his front door to his bathroom and I'm like, okay, 12 seconds. And then Tyler was sitting in the living room between the two watching me do it. Then I walked from the front door to the living room where the trash can was on the way to the bedroom. And I'm like, oh, 4.5 seconds. So if you're telling me you save more time by just leaving it in the bathroom, that's just not true.
I was thinking about, I was going to eat it. I was really excited. Then I opened it up and I saw the can of Hormel chili.
Okay, in the bathroom, did you open it up? Like, when was the deciding point where you're like, I'm not going to open this? And then where is step 2 where...
Oh, yeah, I definitely opened it up in the bathroom. I'm not going to lie.
Okay, just in case this stinks.
No, okay. Okay, so you are at my place right now. I'm moving in. Like, I don't have a lot of space, or like, there's nothing where I can really.
Yeah, but the place came with a fridge and a trash. Well, it didn't come with a trash can, but I saw you had
counter space. No, counter space. So I use my bathroom as like my counter space area. It's a big bathroom. You could do a lot in there.
I can't imagine the counter in your bathroom is bigger than the counter in your kitchen, but now I'm imagining that it is, and that's kind of funny to me.
It's not.
I
was there. All right.
Yeah, well, how would you describe this counter space?
Deceptively clean. And no, by that I mean there was more than enough room to put a wannabe Skyline container there. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't need to go to the
Sure.
bathroom unless it, had a full bladder or whatever.
I think I was gonna take a seat and then eat it there.
What are you,
But I-
Italian?
I understand the Jello. I do get it.
What's wrong with the damn Jello?
Nothing. I
I'm
said
getting
it
at
was-
me for having pudding in the. I feel like everyone should have a security pudding in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Why?
I
Is
agree.
there a pudding prohibition going on that I'm not aware of? What's your bathtub being used for?
Oh well, I mean, every time I take a bath, I gotta have a bowl of pudding with it, right? At least, as long as I don't use the same water for the pudding as I use for the bath.
I like that you don't let it cool. You make it fresh.
And why wouldn't you use milk?
I love that. That is the question right here. Anyway, okay. Can we
Roll on the ground underneath him while he's showering.
can we get to episode? We're not even episode 5, guys.
It was
This
a
is episode
segue.
4.
This has been What's in Tyler's Bathroom, and now back to the shitter.
I hate you guys so much.
Uh,
So my eyes are getting weary. My back is getting tight. That must mean that we're at season, or on the 4th episode now. That
fourth.
means season. yeah, I was wrong, dude. We got 3 more episodes to talk about. So let's make this real quick, because I'm tired. I don't want to talk about this show.
I'm still
This
listening.
is just as painful as watching it, as re-talking about it, okay? So, season 4, episode 21. I feel like this is pretty early on for especially a 9-season show to already be hitting. So, this episode's called Lush Life. Basically, it's about how Doug does some stupid things he's not supposed to. He's a fatty on a diet today, and he cannot be eating something more than that gross-ass frozen food. That's all natural and healthy for him. And yuck, 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 Doug doesn't like it. What does Doug do? Eat a pizza he's not supposed to. And instead of he gets yelled at by Carrie, but then later on, she gives him the slice back and lets him eat the slice. And it's really, really sweet and kind. What's up Carrie's problem today? It was because she's drunk. And she went out to go get a couple of drinks with the girls. And now she's happy, fun, loving Carrie that doesn't care about Doug doing stupid things or bad habits or anything like that. So Doug is now starting to realize that if he gets her drunk, she will be nice and kind to him and let him do whatever he wants in the house and everything. And he has this idea to get she's getting drinks with the girls and everything. Perfect. I'm going to have all the guys over. We're going to do a poker night. And then she is sober and she's mean and awful. And all the guys know that she's super mean and awful too. Because this is the talk where are you sure she's going to let us be in here? Because Carrie's kind of a bitch. It's literally what? And then he's like, no. We get her. She's drunk now. So she's going to be really kind and sweet. And then she came in sober, angry, yelling at them, calling a bunch of fat fucks and get the hell out. Sorry, language.
So, Carrie, I mean, it's just it's an ending situation with the alcohol and all that kind
with
of
the
stuff.
alcohol. Yep. And so this is when they realize that she's like, well, I'm not going to go hang out with those friends anymore because they're a bunch of bitches and a bunch of skanks and I never want to hang out with them anyway. So
Not
I'm never
the
getting
words
drunk
used
and going
in the
out.
episode. Gotta make that clear. It was one person, and she found out that she was talking shit about her to her boss because she wanted her job.
She did call her a skank though. She goes, I'm not
Okay.
hanging out with that skank anymore.
Okay, my apologies. I guess.
So anyway, Carrie's no longer getting drunk, and that is when Doug decides he's going to start getting her drunk. And then he gets to have these parties and everything he wants and poker places. And Lou Ferrigno, the Hulk, ladies and gentlemen, of all people, is saying, the man with the lift on top of the thing, hey, maybe you shouldn't get your wife drunk and stop drugging her because this is bad. And he then tells Arthur, Carrie's or the dad to Carrie, and saying, hey, Doug is getting her drunk and everything because she does nice things and she's kind and everything, and he lets him do whatever he wants when she's drunk. What are you going to do about it? So then Arthur starts getting her drunk because she's so awful to live with, apparently, that the only thing that they can do is get her blasted, obliterated drunk for the entire time. And that's what this episode is about. Is there anything about this that I missed for you guys?
I would like to point out the final line of how this all negotiates, because I think Carrie says at their very last line, because they bargain with each other over the slice of pizza, and she basically says, "I stay the same, and you change stuff about you I don't like."
And this is when we dwindle down to the no morals and just like we're unhappy relationship. You know what I mean? And that's how it was expected. Was just like, I'm gonna be me forever, and you're gonna make the changes and expectations that I want now.
I think it's equal parts like lazy sitcom writing, making the woman out to be the villain, but I think it's also equal parts like these two examples of like if I had a partner who like I found out went the cheap route to get me LASIK and left me blind for a few days and then still wanted credit for doing something nice, and then I found out that my partner is getting me drunk all the time just because I was more tolerable to be around and got my dad in on it. I think it would be a little forgivable if at the immediate resolution I said, no, I'm not doing shit. You're going to do something. Like, I think both of these are pretty reasonable, even in the I Hate Women land of the CBS network in multicam sitcoms of the 2000s, you know?
I do slightly agree with that, Will. I just kind of read it as like about the fat thing again, where like this is all starting with the slice of pizza, and that she wanted to change Doug because she
I hear you there, because fat shaming is definitely a thing that's prevalent in this series. My pushback on that is that she at least did have, your doctor has said this is something that is beneficial to your health. It's not an aesthetic thing for her. It was under the interest of his well-being, even if the show makes her out to be a terrible person for wanting to do that too, or at least her ways of going about it.
Yeah. Well, and look, her making him eat the healthy food and everything, that's not her being the bad person whatsoever. This is when we get to the point of the Flanderization where it's not her Flanderizing herself, but others Flanderizing her for her. Does that make sense?
It does.
And that's why I wanted to pick this episode. I also wanted to throw in Connect Four, but I didn't. And what I just want to throw that episode a little shout out to that episode, because it's about Doug and Carrie trying to find the perfect couple to take out to like a basketball game, but the only way they can do that is by breaking up two separate couples and then trying to get two from each couple to then get together. If that's making any sense. So they then take a female from one relationship and the male from another, and they try making the perfect couple that then they can take out because they didn't like certain people in each group and everything. And this is when we start to slowly build into that whole no morals, terrible human beings, and just breaking up relationships and marriages just so they could have friends to hang out with, because they're so unlikable they have no friends outside of their own home.
This is going to sound strange. I think that the episode kind of reads as like the couples that were together, they were breaking up on their own. We never really saw the negotiations with Doug and Carrie on that. So I kind of read it as like, oh, they're just willing to break up with each other because they don't belong with each other. And yeah, Doug and Carrie are kind of manipulative about that, I guess. But I just don't think they really had anything to do with it either.
No.
With that situation. I could see why, because it's like they're desperate just to have the perfect couple, the perfect friends.
Yeah, well, and really, again, it wasn't like I thought like this is her Flanderization. This was just, again, we're running out of ideas for these characters, so we're not even giving them anything to. We're not even Flanderizing them at this point. We're just putting them into mock situations. You know what I mean? Like mock situation, Carrie gets robbed, and that's the whole. I mean, so and then again, there's no actual anything moving forward. She doesn't take up classes. It doesn't build up to something different. None of this actually leads up to anything, and even all the way up to season 9. I mean, there's certain episodes and topics they talk about, like kids and all that. But other than that, there's nothing that really leads up to something towards the end of any growth besides the apartment episode. And I don't even want to get into the apartment episode. And Dakota knows what I'm talking about. So,
I
okay.
do.
Anything else about this last episode we just talked about Lush Life?
I think the only thing is I don't know because I don't watch a lot of the show, so maybe you can give me some like, is this a common thing? But so far in two of these episodes that we've already looked at, she seems to have like just like addictive behavior. 'Cause she like gets addicted to cigarettes and then gets addicted. We find out she's addicted to alcohol, and
Yep.
so like, is that a common thing that keeps coming back for her character? I don't
It
know.
is a common thing, and I don't know if it's really the addictiveness, but it's also, I mean, it is the addictiveness. But I also would say it's a little bit like that whole do as I say, not as I do.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So like I don't know if it's just like lazy writing and that's why they do it the way it is, but um it is a common thread and theme that they do a lot. Um or and that's why I brought it up too, is like in the earlier episodes it'd be like, oh, we can't do this, or this is wrong of us, we shouldn't be doing this, or Doug, you made me look like an idiot and you didn't talk to me about it, what's going on? And then these other seasons are all about Doug's literally scheming behind her back and you're a fat bastard, you piece of shit, and screaming and fighting and hitting each other, and like it's just completely different. Like it's a completely different show in my opinion. I think it's still the same stock characters and everything with it, but there's just two dynamics now. You know what I mean? You got like one that's we hate marriage, and then one of we're trying to get through it. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
got it.
Um, so let's get to season 5, episode. Sorry.
Sally, put a drum roll underneath all of this.
I hate you.
The last time we were recorded, Tyler fell asleep on me. We were just talking about The Last of Us. And that was the exact face he made. He fell asleep.
I hopped
I
off
was
that
like,
call
"Oh,
while you were
shit."
talking about The Last of Us, so that's so funny.
Dude, I woke up after he hung up on me too.
So it's season 5, episode that.
Okay, so it's season 5, episode 21, Close Encounter. Carrie finds a loophole because of they're trying to save up on spending money and everything because there's some stuff going on with the house and mold and everything. They got to save up their money, and so there's no more spending. Doug can't get all the fat food that he wants to get, and she can't go shopaholic spending because that's her stock character. She's a shopaholic as well. So maybe you're right, Ben. Maybe there is an addiction pattern going on here. Because she can't be making, they do really good, so they say, let's make a small purchase for each other. Doug buys something of $20 worth, where Carrie then buys something that's $200 worth. And this drives them up the wall. But she tells them, rest assured, don't you worry, I found a loophole where if you don't take off the tag, you have 7 days to return it from it or whatever it is. So it goes from giving a nice gift for each other to then, oh, well, now I can start getting myself clothes that I want to get that I can't buy. And then it turns into a whole on like scheme where she's got a calendar of different dates of what needs to get returned on what days, and she's got closets full of all these clothes with all the tags on them, and she's basically shoplifting, basically taking all, well, not shoplifting, but taking all the clothes, using them for the 7 days, then returning them and just to have them, and then buy them again the next week later just to keep the pattern going. Mm-hmm. So she has a clear problem going on too. And then I kind of picked this episode as well too, just one, the steps to Carrie's demise of what I believe is the no morals. We've gone from the loving girlfriend, wife that at least has some beliefs of we got to do these ways, not this way, to now just, well, we can do whatever we want now. You know what I mean? And it comes into and even Doug goes into saying, this is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this whatsoever.
I think we can probably jump on the episode for all of us if we can. So I thought of this episode as like we're finally seeing the not so average housewife. Like you brought up the case earlier that Carrie was just a little bit different than the average housewife, but this is where she actually stamps into average housewife, just because of her just desperation of wanting to be rich, and it this kind of happens a little bit throughout these episodes of like she really wants to kind of have the perfect friends, perfect life, perfect husband, lots of clothes and lots of money. It just kind of ends up being really sad at the end. And the episode could be focused on that, and Carrie could have some sort of resolution of like, we're going to solve the credit card debt that we had. We solved it at first, and then she completely ruins it. But there's no like again resolution to her like saying, "I'm sorry, Doug. Look, I have always wanted to have these things when I was like a child," or something like that. There's nothing like that. It just, I forgot how this one ends, but it was really,
I was
again,
just about to ask about that because I don't know if it's this episode or it was the last one where like they literally get into a fight and at the end, like it was a big fight. It was like, I can't believe you did this, Doug. And then he goes, I'm sorry, and she goes, okay, well I forgive you. And it's like it just like there wasn't even like
I got
I
the
don't know if
ending
you
right
guys
here.
remember which one I'm talking about or not, but
I got the ending to this episode right here. I basically said in my notes, Doug and Carrie are about ready to have sex, and he plays the harmonica as they are going to fuck.
yes, this is the episode. This is what I'm talking about. Where like, because then he buys himself the harmonica as the gift for himself and everything, and it just turns into the oh well we made the mistake. I'm sorry, and then fighting, and it turns back on Doug for some reason. I think at the end, doesn't it?
I think the biggest challenge for me coming into this and only seeing these 6 episodes was just I didn't know how much of these plots the resolutions felt tacked on, but I don't know how many of the plots themselves were ongoing. So like whether it's Carrie's vision or their credit card debt, all of these things with me having no setup in prior episodes, I don't know how much of it is episodic versus serialized, which really to me contributed to these episodes really feeling like Family Guy, where the first 6 or 7 minutes is a completely out of the blue thing that just is 7 minutes of nonsense to set up the main plot. It goes however the fuck it goes, and I don't remember most of the time, so thankfully we're recapping them. And then at the end, I'm sorry too. Or worse, neither of them are sorry, and then the episode ends, and it just feels like a cartoon.
Right before the ending, it basically says that they're not sorry. They're just completely blowing this off because essentially they go to the Carrie's boss's party,
Oh
and
yes, that's right.
they're together there, and then the boss is like, Carrie, can you hold on to this baby? And she's wearing like the dress that she was supposed to like return.
She's holding.
And she's holding the baby out like this. She's like, don't puke on me and whatnot. And then the baby does start to puke, and then Doug just action jumps right in front of her, in front of the puke, and basically saves her. And it ends. Then it's the harmonica
Yes,
sex.
and it's we make love and we talk over the harmonica.
Yeah, they use sex a lot as kind of a sense of resolution for making up. I noticed that.
And that's why I was like, yeah, marriage is a bitch, but at least you have sex. Like that was why I just felt like that was the constant recycling of it too. So our last episode, and we're gonna make this one real quick, just to kind of sum up everything that we've been getting into. So then now we're in season 8. So there's been 3 seasons between the last one we just talked about and all this. So now this is when it just gets into pushing, fighting, biting.
I was actually surprised that out of the top 6, that the episode where Doug goes into some sort of like overeating therapy group, and
I
then
should have used that one too.
and then it ended up being like an abusive husbands group, and I'm like, okay, you're really setting Carrie to the certain bar right now of like being the abusive housewife, and here we go.
Yeah. So and this was actually like I believe in season 8, wasn't it?
I think that was Vocal Discord, I believe.
Okay, yep. So just a little throw one for you. He gets sent to an overeating management class where they talk about their overeating and everything, but he accidentally goes to the wrong one, or he notices that there's another meeting right across the hall that's serving donuts, where the one that he's going to for healthy eating is serving carrot sticks and celery sticks, and we don't like that as Doug.
Are we
So he
watching
goes
Mike and Molly
across.
this week?
So he goes across the room to the abusive relationship counselor office or whatever, and then it just becomes an AAA meeting, but for everyone that's in an abusive relationship.
An AAA meeting?
Yeah.
They talking about tire pressure?
It's like an AA meeting, just a little smaller.
AAA.
Oh, the assault and batteries.
Well, what happens in okay?
Yeah, tell us.
Yeah, okay, so Doug ends up going to abusive counselor's place.
Sorry, the counselors are abusive?
Okay, well, stop it! He goes to a group meeting for abusive relationships, and he acts as a victim. And then the entire episode is him like slowly victimizing himself of the relationship with Carrie. And doesn't she end up going to she ends up going to this class and then abusing everyone in this abusive relationship. And just calling them like names and ugly and fat and stupid and yeah, that's why no one loves you, to like these people that are just in abusive. Yeah,
Damn,
so
I wish we
that
would
was
have
a good
watched this
episode.
one.
Yeah, I know. I thought the one that we were watching was going to be a good one, but I think it sums up what I really wanted to say. Is I believe a lot of this there was just bad writing on Carrie's part. I believe it was the stock character part on it.
This is
I
bad
believe it
writing
has-
across the board. If we're going back to knee jerk, like the episode as a whole just sucks.
Oh, it was a terrible episode in general. But this is where I feel like we hit the epitome. Is it's just Doug's running away from Carrie because it's got to be so awful living with a woman.
Give me the quick synopsis because I need to remember when he runs away from Carrie.
It's just like this episode was about how she pushed him down the stairs accidentally because he was doing stupid Doug stuff. And she had a reflective instinct to punch him.
Yep, I forgot.
Because by this time in the series, all she does now is punch him. And so like it's a reflective instinct now to punch Doug all the time when he's so stupid. This is
a
literally
knee jerk, you might say.
Yeah. So then she pushes him down the stairs, and he breaks or hurts his knee, and then she feels very, very bad for him, and she tries to make it up to him, and she does everything that she can for him, but his recovery ends up doing really, really well instantly, but he wants to use the injury to get out of a wedding that she wants to go to for her cousins, for her family, right? So then he uses the excuse of the broken or the hurt leg and everything that he's not going to be able to make it out there. But his leg actually heals up perfectly fine and he's actually able to walk, and he doesn't like this news by the doctor, and his friend Deacon and him decide to put up a plan where then he fakes being injured still for the next like 2 weeks or something like that, where he's pretending to still have a busted up knee, and then he's milking it, trying to make, and it's put into Doug's head that he has to really milk this as long as he can to make her do everything for him that he can do, because she won't do anything nice for him on a regular basis. So because she hurt him, he has to like really milk this out and make her, and this is when she starts doing like nice things for him only because she hurt him, and he really makes her feel bad for it. And then eventually he wants to go do something like, what was it? It was jump basketball slam dunk thing
like
or whatever.
trampoline therapy or whatever.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden knee gets better. She goes to go check up on the doctor, or finds out, or runs into the doctor, finds out from the doctor that, he lied about his knee the entire time. And then she turns around to catch him jumping on the trampolines right behind her like a child at a school playground. throwing balls at all the other kids and everything, running around and everything. So then she tries chasing him, and he starts jumping on all the trampolines, running away from her and everything, and she's throwing balls at him, and it's just one of like it. I don't even like end with a full on conversation. I feel like it just kind of ends with the whole, and he ran away from her.
Yeah, and I kind of wish we hadn't just talked about the bonus episode with the abusive relationship support group before this one, because now what I'm about to say is going to sound, at the risk of being victim blamey, as far as this relationship is concerned. But Jesus Christ, at what point do we just stop and say that Doug had it coming? Like, so many of the awful, terrible things. Does he deserve what Carrie does to him? No.
No.
Do you start to see why when like the
Why?
big
Yeah,
inciting
no, so,
example,
she's
like
not wrong
you're
on
100%
certain things,
correct.
the actions
You're
and how it is.
100% correct as to how the inciting incident goes, because this whole time I'm fighting, he blinded her. He'd been, doing all this other, like, I get it. But no, you're right. The inciting incident here is she goes to inflict harm on him and he falls down the stairs in self-defense. So that on its face, flat on Doug's face, pretty inexcusable. But then you see the rest of the episode and you're just like, God damn. And we're only seeing this once a week. But this is like their every day he's doing this shit to her and she is still made out to be the bad person. So like,
well, and then you didn't really get to see the episodes where she ends up getting a better job in her career and she starts focusing more on her career than actually,
I watched one with you years ago, but it was something, I don't even remember what it was because it was forgettable, but it was about her career. Something about staying late or a pitch meeting or something. I don't know. It was dark in an office.
Yep. So, any thoughts on this episode or wrapping this up on my whole the stairway to
the stairs that Doug fell down that led to Carrie's downfall?
Yes. The steps to Carrie's downfall.
There was always I don't know how to explain this, but it's just they're not husband and wife. I mean, they are, but at the same time, they're also like mother and son. And it's just really cringe to watch, especially in the supermarket episode. You can kind of see hints of that where he's just like, he's asking Carrie for like a quarter for bubble gum. And he's just kind of like, can I please have a quarter? And please, yeah.
God damn, this is such a good Midwest Nemo cover.
My last part of the steps was the butt. And I feel like she always ends up being not the butt of the joke, but again, the butt as in has to always be the issue, or because of all the stupidity and the things that they do, she is now made out to be the bad person in every episode, even though, and we've all clearly watched the episodes, she has no right to she's in the right in every end of the things that happen. But it always makes her kind of like, oh, well, she's the bad guy. She's got to be the bad guy. You know what I mean? So that's why I made her like the butt. That was the end of that one too. So this was my synopsis for this series, for this episode, for Carrie. What do we think?
Thumbs up to you, thumbs down to everything else about this.
Would we say Flanderized?
Presuming there was a character to begin with? Sure. I mean, I think the whole show is overall, like, it just kind of becomes a Flanderized version of a sitcom. Like, it's like the bare bones of what every joke was for that.
It's not even just her, it's every character.
Yeah, so in that way, yeah. And can I say that it led to the downfall of the show? Probably not, just because the show was so bad to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I think in a vacuum, yes. But I also think when I think about Flanderization, I typically apply it to like situations where it's just a fallback. It's just a joke machine that's not hinging on any particular plot point and it's just slotted in. Do I think it's a fallback? Absolutely. Do I think she's kind of the crutch and the punching bag by the end as much as she is using others as a punching bag? Absolutely. The only thing that's kind of giving me pause here is just seeing what she had to live with, like, I get it. Like, this is the first case where it seems motivated by the other characters in the show slowly driving her to become this person, that because it's almost supported by the text, I don't think it quite falls into it for me. But just because, yeah, the show sucks, there's nothing really to build on, let alone to Flanderize. I'm just going to say yes, she was, because everybody was, because the show sucks.
Most definitely Flanderized. I think just in the case of like, yeah, there could have been much more depth to the anger and to the couples fighting, and they kind of do have that in the last season of the King of Queens. Like they kind of end up breaking up a little bit in the penultimate or the last episode, and I'm like, this just kind of came out of nowhere, didn't it? Because I think the entire motivation, if there was one between this couple, is they want to have children, and I think from what I've heard is that it's very like prominent in season 3 that they really want to have children, but they can't. Carrie's basically just barren, but it doesn't seem like with any of these episodes that were chosen that ever really comes up. So there was just no purpose, no motivation. I, and then also Carrie kind of falls into like a few different, what's a few different personalities that kind of just make her alien like, that it's hard to fall into like more just simply one quirk. Like, going back to like the Joey situation where Joey had multiple avenues, I kind of think Carrie has the same thing. And it is kind of tough to define it as Flanderization in retrospect, because it's not just one trait that she has. But I think it's a better case for Carrie because she does turn into the not so average housewife to the average housewife from the 60s sitcoms of the Honeymooners. So yeah, I would say she is Flanderized.
Well, boys, that was my little episode of
Jesus
today.
fucking Christ. How have I never, not in any of the time we've talked about this show or watching it, did I once think about this meme? That's how old this meme has become in less than a year.
I hope you enjoyed my little episode today on Carrie. What are we doing next, Will?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Next week, we're going to be going back to a show that all of us, from what I remember in our initial talks, are familiar with in terms of a show and especially a character. We've talked a lot about all of these stories, these 5-episode arcs having the beginning, the end, and the middle. And that's actually going to be a little tricky to talk about with next week's character because the middle was his next show after Scrubs. That's right. Next week, we're going to be talking about the janitor.
Wow, I didn't expect you to go with the janitor.
You went with the janitor.
Okie dokie.
I'm really excited for this one.
I'm having trouble narrowing it down. I'm at like 8 episodes currently that I'm trying to get down to 5 and a couple bonuses.
It's hard.
It is. I'm glad it's going to be something we at least have a shorthand with. So yeah, I'm excited. Expect for you guys to have that roadmap for me in the next couple days. And again, these episodes are all going to be coming out weeks, if not months down the line, depending on our post-production schedule. So if you do want to watch along with us, get these roadmaps in advance. They are going to be available on our Patreon, which is going to be down in the comments. Shout out to Tyler. I thought you did a great job today. I don't think there's any more new business we necessarily need to cover. I think we should do a mind meld and get the hell out of here. What do you guys think? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just excited to never watch King of Queens again. So
I know it was last week, but
so can I say one quick funny story about this show?
If it involves the show, I'm sure it's not gonna be, but
no. Okay, so because I know Eric is watching this out here somewhere out
Nowicki?
there, Mr. Nowicki himself.
Yes.
So there was a moment we ended up having to they cut off all of our internet access, everything. We couldn't watch TV or anything for 6 months because we had a roommate that wasn't paying for his end of the room, right? So for a month we sat down and we didn't know what to watch, and I said, "Hey guys, I have this complete series disc of The King of Queens that we can watch. And for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks straight, all we watched was The King of Queens. And they had no idea that I had also How I Met Your Mother and every episode of that too. But we never got to that. We just watched Kings of Queens on repeat for like 4 times straight. And it actually started a divide in the family because everyone started getting angry and fighting with each other because the series was so bad. And there was nothing else to watch on TV but King of Queens.
Damn, that's a funny story.
That's worse than death itself.
That's my funny story. So you can cut all that out, Dakota. Yeah, we'll cut all that out.
I would say for some supplemental reading or supplemental watching, you guys should really check out Kevin Can Go F Himself, because it's a total. It's so mind blowing how much they borrow from the King of Queens to that series.
Or you mean Kevin Can Wait?
Or we need to talk about Kevin.
And I would also say, if we are just talking about Flanderization and Leo Remini characters as a whole, quick shout out, check out the Church of Scientology. Just take a quick test, see if it's something that might be for you. I'm never going to make that decision. I know
this episode is brought to you by the Church of Scientology.
I don't care if she is a Scientologist. I still love her.
No, she's not. I love her and all the work she's done to dismantle.
Isn't she anti-Scientology now?
Yeah, reformed or former, whatever you want to call it. I think the last 15 years, 20 years at least, she's been pretty outspoken against it, which is neat.
Okay. Cool. I think. Is Tom Cruise still on that list? Do we still not watch Tom Cruise movies?
The new singer of Linkin Park is definitely a Scientologist. I've heard.
Yeah, but luckily
You said the new singer of Linkin Park?
Yeah.
Luckily, about 14 years ago, I turned 15, so I don't have to give a shit about that.
Why did we decide to pick up Linkin Park back again? Is it Transformer 6 coming out soon?
I think Mike Shinoda ran out of NFT money.
Crawling in my skin.
Damn, I was going to say it ends with one. Just like every good Metallica concert. All right, with that killer Metallica joke out of the way, I'm saying that so Sally has to leave it in the edit. We're going to call it a night. We're going to wrap things up with a mind meld. Thank you again so much for watching, listening, however you choose to take in this podcast under the sun. Thanks again to Sally for all the work on the post-production side. And let's do this. 3, 2, 1.
2,
Crawfish.
1. Basket.
Basket and
Crawfish.
What? 3, 2, 1. Crab. Damn. Crab and fish and chips.
3, 2, 1.
Seafood. Yeah.
That's our show.
Obvious.
Have a great night. Bye-bye.